I recommend that every business literally write out their plan. Where are you trying to go and how are you getting there? I think having a written plan in place that's a living document that you are reviewing weekly helps you avoid getting overly excited about an opportunity that might not make sense. I think it helps you really recognize the progress that you are making week over week when it often feels like you are just treading water. I think it also allows you to receive advice from well-meaning other people, whether they're informed or not. Everyone and all of your friends and family want to share advice on how to run your business. I think if you have a plan, it becomes much easier to just simply listen to that information and then discard it and go back to working. Versus if you haven't thought about where you're trying to go, every time somebody within the industry or that you deem successful gives you advice, I see a lot of founders stop what they're doing and start a whole new path for no reason.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Stephen Letourneau. And Stephen started his journey with getting a great example from both of his parents that were hard workers. Went to college at 16 and went to a few different colleges, studied urban planning, and then afterwards graduated and worked in retail. Moved over to product packaging. Afterwards, started working with a startup and decided he wanted to pursue his own and doing his own business and branding during COVID. Stepped away from that company for a period of time and started 2 companies, which is what he's doing now. So, with that much as a introduction, welcome on the podcast, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, excited to have you on. So I just gave kind of a quick walkthrough to a much longer journey, but why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started?
Yeah, I think you did a great job sort of saying, having grown up in a household, I'm one of 5 kids with parents who really focus both on work and community impact. I think probably the best lessons we learned over and over again was really the importance of team. You can't have a family of that size without everybody having a role and rowing in the right direction. Fast forward when I went to university, I got to go to school a little bit earlier and probably before I was ready to. Um, but because of those experiences, I was able to get access and meet some great leaders. And I think some of the best lessons that I were taught over and over again that my parents exemplified in different companies that I worked for is some really great people would stop what they were doing and just empty the trash or pick up a wrapper or spend 5 minutes talking to kind of an entry level employee. And I think as I saw that behavior modeled over and over again, it really shaped the kind of leader that I wanted to be and how I wanted to run things in my own life.
So now let's, or definitely a great introduction. Now let's jump into a little bit. So you had great examples, including your parents as you were growing up. Now, I think you'd mentioned before you ended up going off to college around the age of 16, and that's kind of where a lot of things picked up. So maybe kind of walk us through a little bit as to how that came about.
Yeah, I mean, really through a fluke, was happened to talk to a guidance counselor about having moved from a different school district. And I had sort of said, like, I feel like all these plans have to be laid out. Can I just get a copy of the plan and do the work and move on? So I'm not kind of sitting here hanging out watching other people who weren't prepared kind of slow the process down. So fortunately, the school was amenable. As for my parents, I was able to graduate high school at 16 and sort of move on to college. My parents were willing to let us be close and then eventually travel. The great thing about kind of having the experiences that I did is it really just kept me open to saying yes to different things. I had originally gone to school because I thought I was going to be a doctor, was pre-med. And then eventually I just found that by shadowing some different types of doctors, it wasn't something I wanted to do. Versus I got to meet an urban planner and really look at how people build community. whether it's how you treat people or literally where we're placing signs, and just got super interested in how the architecture of things worked, and
Hmm.
how well it would translate into kind of building a business.
No, that sounds like it was a great opportunity. So you went off to school, kind of started going down one path of being a doctor, switched gears a bit. Now I can't remember. Remind me, did you end up going all the way through school, or you kind of decide to go in a different direction, or finish degree, didn't finish degree? Kind of walk us through how college ended up playing out for you.
Yeah, the disadvantage to switching your major after a couple years is not all the classes translate. I did not finish. I was offered a huge opportunity at work to go and work for L Brands at the time under senior leadership. And, my boss at the time really encouraged that school would always be there. And the opportunity to learn from this specific group of C-suite executives wouldn't. So I took a leap of faith and dove in and haven't looked back since.
So now you say, okay, haven't made or took advantage of the opportunity as it kind of presented. Decided, you can always or fall back or go back, if things don't work out. So you or went out and I think you worked, you said in retail or something along those industries. So kind of walk us through a little bit as a little bit more what that opportunity was and kind of how you went about pursuing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an opportunity to work in visual merchandising in retail stores. One job led to the next, and then that led to an opportunity to move and go work at home office, and then essentially be part of the team that builds out that planning. And really, it gave me an education on it wasn't so much about, how do we make this look pretty, but it's really what's the psychology behind what the end consumer experience is going to be. So, how do we create that feeling or emotion? Some people may assume, hey, you put like a block of yellow shirts here. It's like, nope. This makes people think of bright, sun, happy, and in the dreary winter, we all need that. So, really getting a better understanding of how the overall consumer experience was going to be, and then knowing at some point that would all have to translate through D2C.
So now you go in that direction. Now, how long did you work in that retail environment and kind of figure out, or it sounds like a bit of a shift to looking at product packaging and how things are displayed and kind of how that psychology, which I always find it to be an interesting area. But how long were you in that for? So I think at some point you shifted over and kind of started working for a startup. But kind of give us an idea as to how long you worked in there and then what caused the shift.
So I spent probably, I'd say, about 15 years in retail and working for different brands and different departments within it. I had a brief stint in politics, working for some elected officials, which was really the same thing. It's how do we package ideas or people in a way that's appealing and presentable. And then
Mm.
from that experience, as you mentioned, got introduced to a startup company through a fund that I was partnering with and helping them oversee brands. And really was a chance to strip down everything that they were doing. Not wrong, just to kind of strip everything back. It was very much like renovating a home. We took everything down to the studs. So we repackaged, we reformulated, we reset the entire strategy around what would happen, and then really
Mm.
set to work about building that brand. And we took it from really zero to a little over 3 million in sales in about 24 months. So it was a great experience. And then COVID hit. And when the bulk of your sales are coming from brick and mortar retail partners, once they all close, so does that funnel.
So now, one, they're kind of just backing up slightly just to touch on, because I mean, you've been working, or it sounds like, within the fund or within the business, you got introduced to the startup. Now, while it sounds like a good opportunity, and I would probably are taking the same course, it also, going from what is and I'll put in quotes, established business or larger business, and, maybe has those larger budgets or a little bit more or fuller resources. What kind of drew you to going down more of that startup route or kind of switching those gears?
Really was an opportunity to kind of have my hand in all different pieces of the business, which just isn't possible at the level of companies I was working for. They're too big. So for me,
Mm.
I really wanted to explore the fact that all of the different departments really have this thread of DNA that runs through them. They're really cogs in the machine. So they have to have really this innate knowledge of how those other departments work in order to get things to be through success. I also had an ownership stake, had an opportunity to get an ownership stake in this. So if I were going to build something, I wanted to build something for me. And I really wanted to change the type of culture that I was promoting or that I was a part of. I worked for large companies that were really supporting or highlighting these 60-hour work weeks where it was all or nothing. And, I think for me, it was turning out to be nothing. I missed too many birthdays, too many weddings, too many things because I felt that if I missed any opportunity because I didn't have a degree to fall back on, or because I wasn't sure who the next team would be, I felt I had to always be there. And what I learned is didn't. Once I left that job 2 weeks later, I met the person who replaced me. So really life moved on for them and has moved on for me as well.
No, it makes sense. And, it is one where there's advantages to working for a larger business. Oftentimes they provide the resources, but you have the flip side of you have a limited ability to, be impactful within the business or to otherwise participate across a wide variety of different aspects of the business. It sounds like, the startup was a great opportunity and a great option for you to pursue. So now you shifted over to the startup, you did that, kind of help them to build and to grow and expand. Now, I think you said that, at some point, or if I remember right, you decided to shift from working from the other startup to maybe starting your own business. So kind of walk us through a bit on that front.
Absolutely. I got a chance to start a public company, which opened up different revenue sources. And within that company, I started off as the chief brand officer. And really, they allowed me the freedom to incubate and create brands or to seek brands to acquire that would help fulfill the portfolio. And the two of the main brands that are within the public company right now, they're really allowing me to kind of run my thesis of this is how business can work from the point of it being scalable and profitable. We just
Mm.
witnessed about 10 years of startups getting a lot of VC funded money where growth was pushed over profitability over and over again in hopes that those companies would get flipped. The disadvantage is if no one buys that company, then it runs out of gas and it dies on its own. So really what this has allowed me to do is to say, hey, I think there's a different way that we can approach business. And I'd really like to test it out. And fortunately, they said yes.
Oh, that sounds like an awesome opportunity and sounds like a fun path to go. So you went in that direction. I think, we're just walking through. I think if I recall, and definitely correct me where I'm wrong, that that was your initial entrance into doing your own business, and then from there, I can't remember, or you shifted or things evolved, and you end up starting or wrapping up that business and starting up a couple of your or a couple other businesses, or kind of walk through a little bit of the evolution of the first entrance into kind of doing your startup, and then walk us through kind of how that evolution proceeded.
Yeah, once we joined the public company, we had built an incubation lab, which was really just about how do we create businesses that make sense, hyper focused on one specific target demographic, and really kind of capture their life cycle of spend. So, they're from their cup of coffee in the morning to their nightly skincare routine to vitamins, really looking at what is the type of products they would be on the hunt for that makes sense. And how do we find the best quality version of that? So whether that's acquiring a brand or starting a new one. Um, in that process, we got to work with a coffee company that was looking for some advice when it comes to branding and building a brand ethos and overall consumer experience. While talking with them, I had said I really want to start my own coffee company. I think we travel the world and get to see these amazing hotels and golf resorts and spas, and everything is curated and held to such a high level of quality. And then you're handed the exact same cup of coffee everywhere you go. And I said, it's amazing to me that you've thought so carefully about everything when it comes to the paint color on the walls, to the shoelaces your staff wears to represent your brand of quality. And yet, the number two consumed beverage in the world just was an afterthought. I was like, I think we can do better. So, with that pitch, I started to build Stephen James Curated Coffee Collection. That's the coffee company that's owned by BFYW, and really start to, hopefully change the way that we're approaching how we do things.
No, sounds like a fun direction. So you kind of said, okay, coffee is almost, that period of time, and Starbucks has made some inroads or some shifts, but it's oftentimes kind of an afterthought, but was where you wanted to put the focus. So catch us up kind of where things are at today, or kind of, are you continuing to do those businesses, pursued additional or other side hustles or other businesses, or kind of walk us through, lead us up to where things are at today?
Sure. The coffee company is going great. We do really well on our D2C site, as well as on Amazon. We launched with Kroger. For those of you in the Midwest, that's our big grocery store. It's the largest one in the US as they merge with Albertsons. We're in a couple of bakeries. Our big focus really is hotels, resorts. So we hope to announce those partnerships next year. We have a new collection coming out. So we're launching espresso. Really, when I looked at coffee, I wanted to see as an industry what were things that were different and innovative that were happening and how to participate. So all the coffee was started off with, if we want to be a premium brand, what's this checklist of things we need to have? And then once we hit them, it started to be diving deeper. I never look at the brands that I'm working on as really being a product focus. I think much more the brands that I'm in charge of are really just how are we storytelling and how does it become impactful and meaningful into your daily lives? The great thing about having a cup of coffee in the morning, it's one of the few times that you're not doing something for your kid, you're not responding to an email, you're literally just staring at the pour over or your coffee machine and just willing it to get this magical juice out faster. So I think it's really how do we find these micro moments of wellness when it comes to what we're doing, so that's been the exciting part of coffee. And as it grows and goes into other retailers, new opportunities come to life. Um, that being said, as that sort of moves further down the path, then I'll go back and start to bring to life some of the additional brands that are kind of in the pipeline. So we will have a tea collection, and then we'll have two skincare collections coming out. One will get a sort of a brand reimagining or evolution, hopefully coming out fall of next year. And then the other one will come out in spring of 2026. It's always exciting to kind of go back to the beginning with a new project and take everything that we've learned and apply it in real time.
No, that's awesome, and sounds like some good directions. And you kind of started to touch on a follow-up question to what you're talking through, which is now if you're to, it sounds like you're kind of going down some of the B2B routes, or doing some of the hotels and the retail and that, which until the end reaches the end consumer. But if you're to, I guess, two questions, and not to try and hit you with a compound question, but I'm going to do it anyway. One is, what kind of pushed in the direction as opposed to just going direct to consumer, trying to get their buy-in, and then kind of to follow along with that, kind of as you were to look out into the next, 6 to 12 months, how do you see things playing out?
Really, initially the plan was to be hyper focused on D2C. I really wanted to make sure that we owned that foundation and channel. I knew that we would lead into sort of hotels and resorts because I knew that there was an opportunity based on the experiences that I was having. I'm fortunate enough to travel the world and talk about what's happening in the world of finance and stay at these beautiful luxury hotels and really get to meet their teams there and hear what they're excited about or all the different pieces they're doing. And as I mentioned, to meet the best of the best in the industry and have them hand you a subpar item is sort of just like someone was letting all the air out of the tire. So that's really what kind of led the refocused on hotels and resorts. Where I think the next 6 years are going is we've got a couple of major retailer expansions, and then kind of the spa amenity or hotel amenity and restaurant team will really get going. We've got some exciting partnerships coming out fall of next year. And as those get announced, we expect those to be global partnerships.
Well, sounds like a lot of fun opportunities yet to come, and a lot of great opportunities. So definitely it'll be fun to watch as things play out and how they continue to evolve. So with that, now as we have kind of caught up to the present day, and even looking a bit into the where things are headed here in the future, walk me through, or sorry, not walk me through, but I got the or last questions I like to ask at the end of each episode. So we're gonna touch on those now. So with that, the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
The worst business decision I ever made was I let myself, because I didn't want to have the argument, be convinced to take an opportunity that financially did not make sense for the business. And I let the team around me or our board at that time convinced me that the brand awareness opportunity was worth the money that we would lose. We lost $110,000. And what I argued, not hard enough for, but what I argued at the time was if we can afford to lose $110,000, why can't we afford to put $100,000 in our own D2C marketing budget?
Hmm.
At the time we had product and not cash. So that was part of the decision. But, really something that left a very bitter taste in my mouth when sort of push came to shove. It was a bad decision. It did not net the company money. It obviously cost us $110,000, which we could have greatly used in that time period. But it really showed me that in a moment where the fiscal concern should have outweighed anything else, that the weight of people's ego is almost always going to win. So the ego of being able to say, we're being placed here instead of saying this is costing X money, really changed how I looked at a lot of the business opportunities. Many times we'll have an exciting opportunity for a partnership or to do a collaborative product launch. But now I'll sit down and look at the actual financial mechanics of it and say, while this is an opportunity, it is not the opportunity. And it really shapes kind of all the decisions I make today.
No, I think that's, and that's always, it's always easier looking back and saying, hey, I could have spent this money or allotted it better. And, I think that's a lot of times, especially early on where businesses, in a different sense get caught up with, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to blast it on Facebook marketing or, social media or whatever, the platform is. And I'm just going to Google AdWords or whatever. And not that those are necessarily bad or, bad approaches, and businesses can certainly be successful there. But sometimes you look and say, hey, this isn't necessarily the avenue that's going to create the greatest reward, or it's not necessarily why you could put your money there. There may be better places, and yet it's always a balance of trying things out, figuring things out, and yet on the same time it's always ripe for mistakes because sometimes you throw money at and you look back and say, hey, that wasn't necessarily the best money spent. So definitely a easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from.
No,
Second
100%.
question.
People get
Oh,
excited
go
about
ahead.
opportunities.
Yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely. It's one where you can get excited on all the opportunities that you can say, look out on the horizon and think of everything that can, all the things that can happen, and sometimes you get caught up with the opportunity as opposed to what's the best return for the investment. So definitely a great one to learn from. Second question now that I like to ask is, so now if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
Absolutely. So I mentor small businesses. We actually have a meeting tomorrow. They're doing this exercise today. I recommend that every business literally write out their plan. Where are you trying to go and how are you getting there? I think having a written plan in place that's a living document that you are reviewing weekly helps you avoid getting overly excited about an opportunity that might not make sense. I think it helps you really recognize the progress that you are making week over week when it often feels like you are just treading water. I think it also allows you to receive advice from well-meaning other people, whether they're informed or not. Everyone and all of your friends and family want to share advice on how to run your business. I think if you have a plan, it becomes much easier to just simply listen to that information and then discard it and go back to working. Versus if you haven't thought about where you're trying to go, every time somebody within the industry or that you deem successful gives you advice, I see a lot of founders stop what they're doing and start a whole new path for no reason.
Hmm. No, I think that's definitely a great rule of thumb and a great takeaway for people to, especially to get started in the startup or small business to adhere to. So, well, now as we've kind of we've reached the present day, we've heard the answer to the couple questions, and as we wrap up, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above. What's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
You can find my profile on LinkedIn, or you can follow any of our brands on social. So at GetSJ Coffee, through Instagram at Mango Moi, or at our publicly traded company at Better For You Wellness.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, expand their network, support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So With that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you the listeners are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if you ever need help along your journey with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. This was great.